Not much is known of Madame Sherri's early life. Born Antoinette Bromare in Paris sometime around 1878, she was a trained seamstress, but she also danced and sang cabaret in the city, before meeting the man she would eventually marry in 1909. His name was Anthony Macaluso, and he was an American who was traveling internationally in order to avoid authorities in the United States, as he was being charged with blackmail. Using a pseudonym, the couple moved to New York City in 1911, where Madame Sherri began work as a Broadway costume designer, opening her own shop in the city, which would see quite a bit of success. Around 1917, her husband's health was deteriorating, and after his death in 1924, in her grief, she took a trip here to southern New Hampshire, where she purchased almost 600 acres of land after falling in love with the area, intending to spend her summers here. Soon after, she began constructing her castle. Her eccentric design ideas frustrated the team of contractors she'd hired, as she made changes and demanded strict adherence to her plans. As she explained to them, only the best was to be done. Upon completion, though, the 3-story house was elaborately decorated, specifically to host her illegal drinking parties during the Prohibition era. Living trees flanked the main floor bar. Furs, paintings, and mirrors adorned the floors, walls, and furniture, and Madame Sherri was known for her dramatic entrances, coming in wearing a costume designed herself before enjoying the party from her personal throne, while her guests enjoyed bootleg drinks. Soon, though, America had enough of Prohibition, and the 21st Amendment repealed it at the end of 1933. Parties became few and far between as people went back to establishments and clubs. Despite her business, as time went on, Madame Sherri became financially insolvent. This area is a pretty quiet section of New Hampshire, right along where it borders both Massachusetts and Vermont. And the townspeople here weren't exactly keen on her activities in this area. And she was known to drive her Packard throughout the village, pulling money out of either garter belt or her bra in order to pay for things. And this didn't sit particularly well with the townspeople, and in some ways alienated her from them as she was hosting these lavish parties. In the 1950s, facing hardship, her health began to decline as well, and she stopped summering at the castle after a particularly bad vandalization of the house. Several years after, it burned to the ground, leaving what you see here today. Madame Sherri would die in 1965. Eventually, this whole area was purchased by one of her friends who deeded it to the Forest Society, and it was named in Madame Sherri's honor. It was the Madame Sherri Forest. So her legacy continues on.